This is a whip scorpion, also known as a giant Vinegaroon. Hi, Russ of Aquariumex here. Is a giant Vinegaroon the best pet invertebrate? Well, today, after a brief introduction to giant Vinegaroons, we'll talk about housing and care, and then talk about the pros and cons of keeping this species so that you can come to your own conclusion. So, by way of introduction, this fabulously bizarre creature is a giant Vinegaroon, Mastigoproctus giganteus. It is an arachnid, a relative of spiders and scorpions and so on, that is native to the southwestern United States. There are also closely related species in the southeastern United States. If you look at it closely, you can see that it has 8 legs. It's got 3 pairs of walking legs, and then these long whip-like legs in the front, known as antenniform legs, are adapted to serve as sensory organs, not as walking appendages. They're quite sensitive and able to help them hunt for their food and things like that. You notice that the tail is very different from a true scorpion's tail. They are not true scorpions. This long whip-like structure also serves as a sensory organ, and they will whip it around to try to deter potential predators. At the base here of this telson structure, they have some glands that will excrete an acid in the form of a mist. And that acid is largely acetic acid, which is the same ingredient in vinegar that gives it its acidity, and some caprylic acid, as well as some water. It's much stronger in concentration than the acid in vinegar. The household kitchen vinegar is about 5% acid, and this stuff is over 80% acetic acid, and then there's some caprylic acid in there as well. It can deter predators. If it gets in their eyes, it can sting. It can also cause damage to the exoskeletons of other invertebrates. These formidable looking structures in the front are the pedipalps. They are used to grasp and crush the prey. Vinegaroon is not venomous. They do have chelicerae that they use to eat their food once they have used the pedipalps to catch and subdue it. Alright, so let's talk a little bit about housing and care. As you can see, I've got an enclosure here that is suitable for a Vinegaroon of this size. The container is just a tub that has been ventilated. It's good to give them quite a bit of ventilation. I've got some screen up here at the top and a few smaller holes along the side for some cross ventilation. The substrate is play sand mixed with about 30 to 50% cocoa fiber. The cocoa fiber helps the play sand to retain burrowing capacity so that the Vinegaroon can burrow, which is very important, especially when it's time for hibernation. And I've pressed down the substrate, so again, to help it compact so that the Vinegaroon can burrow. As you can see, there are several pieces of cork bark to serve as hides, and there is a small water dish. They will drink water from a water dish, so it's important to provide one. And it's important to keep some dampness to the substrate so that they can continue to burrow in it. If it gets too dry, it will collapse. So in the summer and spring and fall, when they tend to be active, they'll eat once or maybe twice a week. They eat things like crickets and mealworms, superworms, that sort of thing. Quite a few different insects that they will eat. They don't really require supplementation of those insects like many reptiles would. They just can take them in their natural state, so to speak. And they are quite voracious eaters and hunters during that time. They like to fatten up. You can see this one is going to go down for hibernation probably pretty soon, and so it's pretty fat. But when you look at this individual, it's the same individual actually, you can see that it looks quite a bit different when it has recently emerged from hibernation and is ready to start eating. When they hibernate, they need a good depth of substrate, enough to bury themselves quite deeply, and the substrate needs to remain moist, as I mentioned, so that they can maintain a burrow. And they also like it to be quite dark. Something that I usually do during hibernation time is put their bin or container into a deep container and then wrap it or surround it with newspaper so that it's quite dark there. That seems to help them begin the molting process and to conclude it successfully. They tend to go down for hibernation around December, in my case at least, right around December, and they'll wake up in May or June generally. They don't always hibernate, but when they do, they tend to molt, and they'll grow quite a bit. I've had these individuals for approximately 4 years, and every time that they molt, they come out much, much bigger. And that is part of the reason for this increase in size prior to going down for hibernation. So those are the care basics for Vinegaroons. Let's talk about the pros and cons of keeping them. First of all, as you've heard, they're really pretty easy to care for. Second of all, they get pretty large and have this alien look. That's really kind of unique and makes it a fascinating creature to observe and to share with others. They're fairly easy to handle if you're careful and kind of deliberate in your movements. It's not something I would allow a small child to handle or someone without a lot of experience with invertebrates, but they tend to be pretty docile once they are accustomed to handling. They live for quite a long time. I've heard the females can live up to 20 years, and the males don't live quite that long, but still, it's a pretty good lifespan for an invertebrate. And another advantage of keeping Vinegaroons is that they can be bred in captivity. In fact, the individuals that I have are captive bred, although there are still quite a few collected from the wild. So let's talk about some of the disadvantages of keeping a giant Vinegaroon as a pet. And one is their use of their defense mechanism, spraying the acid, the acetic and caprylic acid we talked about before. Now, if that were to get in your eyes, that would probably sting a lot. I've never felt that, but you'd want to take precautions to make sure it doesn't get into your eyes. Typically, when a Vinegaroon is accustomed to handling, it's not going to spray anyway. But you never know. I have had them spray me occasionally onto my hands. That doesn't hurt at all to me. If you happen to be sensitive to those particular chemicals, it's possible that it could cause some kind of reaction, I suppose, but it's never been an issue for me. I did once have a cut on my hand when I was sprayed, and I did feel that stung a bit, but otherwise, just something you wash off. But because of that, I would recommend that you not have small children or someone really inexperienced with invertebrates handle a Vinegaroon. One disadvantage of keeping a Vinegaroon is that it often chooses to hibernate for quite a few months out of the year, from about December to May, sometimes a little bit longer. So you will not be seeing a lot of your pet during that time. But I guess you can see that as an advantage if you just take into account that that's really a low maintenance pet during that time. Those are really the cons that I can think of right now. If I've missed a pro or a con of keeping Vinegaroons as pets, please leave a comment below. I'd like to take a second to thank our Patreon backers. We really can't do this without you. We really appreciate your help. Thanks for watching today. I post videos on aquarium and vivarium pets every Wednesday and Friday. Please feel free to share, rate, comment, and if you haven't already, subscribe. And then click the bell icon so you don't miss our next video. Are giant Vinegaroons the best pet invertebrate? Let me know in the comments. If you're interested in keeping other invertebrates as pets, check out the Best Pet Invertebrate playlist. We have a number of species in the playlist already and plan on adding more in the future.